Good evening, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Greg West coming to you from the Black Community Blackboard YouTube page, where we like to come together and highlight the positive things and talk about the matters that affect the Black community the most. I brought back two of my previous guests, Sam Simmons and also Brandon Jones. As I said in previous episode, the curriculum that we run off of Felons for the Future, we got from Brandon. From further investigation, found out that Brandon got it from Sam. So, truthful of the matter, I can say these are the fathers of my organization right here. Good evening, gentlemen. How are y'all doing this evening? Other than Sam being tired.
Maintaining, doing okay.
Yeah. I was talking with Brandon before you came on about how's the climate up there right now in Minnesota? I mean, in Minneapolis with the trial going on, and maybe that's some of the things that we can discuss tonight. Because he was also saying how the environment was, and also that there's been a spike in the violence in our neighborhood. I mean, in your neighborhoods up there, and it's the same thing that's been going on there down here. And maybe that's something that we might need to discuss that help people see that that attitude of apathy can affect us in many ways, and I mean, in so many different ways. So, gentlemen, how you feel about the climate of what's going on in your cities right now up there?
Mm. I would say that it's a mixed climate. On one end, we got the Chauvin trial for the death of George Floyd, as everyone's saying now. Before we were saying it's the murder, now it's the death because we want to keep it within legal bounds. So we have that going on. We got protesting happening, and then I would say on the other end, we still got the issues that we've traditionally had. But when the weather gets warmer, we have more community violence and shootings have been up. Carjackings have gone up significantly. And I mean, it's trauma all throughout the community. That's what I've been seeing. How about you, Sam?
It's just intensification of things that was already going on before COVID in terms of the violence. I mean, I have had conversations with different folks around the country. It's pretty much identical for
It is.
the carjackings and which as an old dude, I'm still trying to make sense out of that, but I'm not even going to try. But um, when you live your life in what I call survival stress management mode,
Right.
uh, even terrorizing people is entertainment, and it just you know taking advantage of a opportunity in a very negative way. I mean, and like I said, just like everything else in our community since COVID came down, it just took the cap off of stuff that's already there that needs, that folks say they was paying attention to, but not really. It's just a bunch of talk that need to be dealt with externally and internally, right? And so with the COVID thing, yeah, I've been trying to avoid the show. You know, it's become a show. I know that some people will find that being mean, but you know, everybody who's somebody's in Minneapolis right now. You know, getting their time on the news media. So you know, we're late in the evening, and you're getting the full effect of grouch right now.
Hey, I still appreciate you coming, Sam. I really do, man. I do. No matter how grouchy you might get, I think I might get some best information out of you when you're grouchy because you're gonna be straightforward, no holds bar, straight up, no chaser. So I'll take that. So
And you,
go ahead. You were
no,
saying,
that's fine. Go ahead.
I was like I was touching on like it seems like over this generation really this younger generation seems like they have more apathy than previous generations. Because I remember when I was coming up and I was out there, people thought that we were like the worst generation ever. And now I'm looking at these little young cats like, what in the hell is going on? Because it seems like they have no feelings at all. Then dealing with the stuff like you said that the cap is coming off, and where people are giving up hope. They saying that no matter how many times they watched us march and stuff like that, it seems like things ain't going to change. What do you attribute to this generation feeling like that, though, gentlemen?
So, um, we have to think about this Actually, I would say there's two generations because there's some babies coming up that are getting involved as well that are 9, 10, 11 years old. And I would say the generation, I'm a millennial. I'm on the older end of millennials. And we are the first generation that's been two times removed from having a solid family and community structure, being urbanized, so moving into these urban settings. We're further away from Christianity, which was one of the glues that kept our families and our communities together was through religion. We are the generation that had a large number of parents that did not stay together. There was no more shotgun marriages and all that. It was just like you had a baby, you can figure it out on your own. Plus, you add in the response to that, crack cocaine, drugs in the community, guns being pumped into the community, gangs, you add hip hop music. So what we're seeing is just the next wave of that. So that started with my generation, and now we've had children. So without that foundational pieces, without that structure, without seeing marriages and having families be more connected instead of disconnected, without community actually having community and us being reliant on other things and the economics changing, without those things, we've had children, and those children have grown to, I don't want to say that they don't have feelings because they do. They're just more personalized. We have gotten away from a communal type of feel, and the trauma's gotten so deep that now I got to get it on my own because I've had to get it on my own since I was younger, and I'm gonna get all I can get before somebody gets me. And it's like this societal game of cat and mouse that many black young people are playing. And unfortunately, when we play these games, we continue to push forward the the numbers in the community. So they end up having babies, and they end up teaching their kids the same thing. So it's trauma at the end of the day. It's something that these two generations as of right now is what I call the institutionalized generations, where we've lost all these intercommunal things that we had long term, and we've begun to be more individualized and dependent on systems to take care of us when we can't take care of ourselves as a community.
Ugh. Well, um, I I I see it uh, further back. To
Mhm.
be honest, I mean, it's been festering all along. I mean, you if you do not address an injury, if you don't address an injury, what it does is it festers,
Yeah.
right? And our parts of our community been festering for a long time. Um, and each community appears to get worse when you listen to old people, right? You know, when I was young, old people were saying we were out of control. I grew up in the projects, right? Some of this same behavior was contained in the projects. It's not contained as much as it was before, for one thing. I mean, we were in the, when they had the riots in '69. uh Johnson had a report, Kerner report, trying to talk about why did this happen, and how do we not have it happen again. The report came back and said because we live in a racist society, one white, one black, and that the media kept it going and made it fester. And so this is a ongoing festering that's been happening, and the approaches that we've had over this time is it hasn't really changed, right? Something happens, we get upset, we protest, we march, and calm down for a little while, we protest, we march, right? And each generation has been less tolerant of this, right? And so it's just been a matter of accumulation of these issues, and when Brandon talk about the law, the disconnection between, two-parent homes and families, there's two-parent homes in our community, but what we have done is we who are able to make that happen have separated ourselves from the others, and even we finding that we can't even separate ourselves enough for it not to even affect our families, right? Because we're still connected. We're a collective people, so we still connected to cousins and nephews and all these other kind of things. And when you refuse or can't deal with your trauma honestly, then you do things to act like it don't exist. And so you have the system that could care less, right? And then you have us who uh, again have one approach, and fighting the system that is well ingrained, right? And but at the same time, the stuff that's happening under our noses, either we ignore or just talk about, or just haven't found new ways to address those. And so it's one of those both ands, and when you can't, and when you leave out one of the ands, you end up with a problem that just continues to fester. So it's like, again, when I think about COVID, I think COVID is the dude who done went around and just opened up Pandora's box,
Right.
right? Because we've been talking about health disparities in our community. We've been talking about all this stuff. We've had research grants and all these other things, and COVID is just like, look, y'all keep talking. I'm gonna show you. It's right here in your face. And it was amazing to me. Everybody's surprised. But when you talk about crack cocaine was the last. It is like if you have a boil and that sucker burst,
Hmm. All that pus. Yeah.
yeah, crack cocaine burst the boil, okay, in our community. And it burst the boil in a way that those treatments that we've been trying to hold it together, try to hold back the boil, which was uh, Black women in our community.
Yes, man.
Okay. And we're just coming to acceptance of how devastating crack cocaine was to the women in our community, which means that it was devastating to our children, right? Because you know, even when Black women were having problems in the community, they try to ban and look out for each other, but who was looking out for them? And I know that this is not a great conversation that some other men might have, and I'm not blaming anything, anybody. I have to deal with reality.
Right.
And so when you talk about this generation, and technically Brandon is even a little bit younger than the generation, because the generation right now would be about 40 years old, 45 years old, who were children during the crack era. It was one of them time. It was the last part of that time where children, even in struggling environments like in Chicago. I mean, if you look at them high rises, some 16-story high rises that were going in Chicago, we had these pockets all over the country of this stuff going on, but they were contained, right? They were contained pockets. It's no longer contained. And then on top of that, um, um, these babies had to fend for themselves. So they grew up in trauma. At least when in the community, there was a pocket or two of love somewhere. So you knew that there was something different, but them pockets disappeared. And so now I got to fend for myself. And then with the correctional institutions locking up Black men for something they wouldn't lock up white men for, that leaves young Black males to be the so-called leaders of the community, And when you are leading something and you don't know nothing, and on top of that, you are leading something from a position of fear.
Mm.
And so now everybody's afraid. And so, and everybody's trying to find their ideal manhood, which has always been in question. Now we all got guns, right? And everybody got a gun. And because when you talk to young people, even the ones that are 40 and up, really, even the ones who don't want to have anything to do with guns feel like they can't be without a gun. So now we afraid of each other, right? And so, and we got to the point where when we were going through the crisis in the late 70s, because that learned in the 70s, there was no investment in the inner city, none.
Right. Not
Okay,
pulling
I
guns.
mean, we talk a lot about Uncle Ronnie or Ronald Reagan. He what his whole thing was, the trickle down theory, and what they say. By the time it got to us, it was dust. And so every person fending for themselves was already kind of starting already. It's just that it was adults who were more involved, right? That was involved in that criminal behavior. And then when you took the adults off the street, they kind of managed it to some degree, and you got babies managing it, and you can't manage the babies. And the other thing is we have some, and I'm gonna get in trouble for this. Some of these uh uh some of these community lies about how close we are, the kids ain't trying to hear that,
Right.
right? I mean, because if you can't be honest about what you doing and how you doing it, and you keep telling me one thing, but I keep seeing something else, I ain't trying to hear you.
Right.
And so you got the 40-year-olds who are currently, and again, some of us has done somewhat okay, but the system got more military, the military uh, positions. Uh, 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 they didn't have to change. Uh, the power control of folks in the community, white folks, and that kind of stuff. And again, when you're still fighting a battle from, look what you're doing to me, why ain't you doing it? Why ain't you treating me like a human and that kind of stuff? And you're so focused on there, but what's going on in your own community and within your own house, you don't want to deal with that publicly. You don't want to deal with that fully, and then you want to tell my babies to listen to you
Mm.
when you live in one life, and then you want to tell me about mine, and I see the real, and so now I'm 40 some, say you 40 some years old in parts of our community, you're a grandparent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when I talk about survival stress management is about the moment. And when you live your life in moments, you're gonna have more babies than you want. You're gonna have more babies than you could take care of. You're gonna have a whole lot more problems because you are gonna do what feels good in the moment and then cry about the consequences later. So basically, I ain't addressing the consequences in the community, and the outside folks, they want to give you consequences like their cough drops, right? Now so they're going through emotional masturbation, giving consequences that don't affect the people they're putting the consequence on, and just to make themselves feel good. So I could go further, but I'm going to leave it alone for a minute. You want to process that?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff I heard in there, and like one of the things that I wanted to ask our psychotherapist up there. Um, After the crack era hit, we've always had classism in the black community, like most, what I'm saying, like everybody else. But did the crack era really divide us more on that classism, that caste system in the black community deeper, because you remember a lot of people ran off to the suburbs trying to do, get away from them, and they gave a lot of people who were left here the feeling like forget them bougie brothers over there too, So now that the community needs healing, it's like it can't bond together because it's back to like one class against the other. So does that play a factor in anything, or do you see anything like that in our community?
Nothing that wasn't already there. I
Right.
Right.
mean, before
Practices,
you
right?
had the money to go, but you didn't have nowhere to go because you couldn't. So when you got that opportunity, when we started to integrate, then and you got through redlining a little section to move into one of the first ring suburbs of your local city, then you went. So I wouldn't say it was nothing different. I mean, we've always had hierarchical structures. Just look at the church.
Right.
You know, I mean, so people can go to this and do that and be a part of this banquet. Yada. I mean, that stuff has always been a part of our existence. And we, the crazy part about it is that's a part of human behavior is to
Right.
have hierarchy. So it's
Right.
nothing new to us. What the crack epidemic did do was it took people who traditionally did not have resources and money, and they got money quickly, and they did what people who don't have a lot when they get something do. They started to go out there and get the same capitalistic, materialistic things that meant status. So them dudes and them women who were hanging out with them dudes was going out there getting the feli, getting the Mustangs, getting the herringbone chains. You smiling, Greg, because you know you was getting some of that stuff too. That's
But
what was going. Go ahead, Sam.
well, the thing is you're right. It was already there. The thing about crack, though, crack affected all aspects of our community.
Bingo.
Okay, it wasn't just the folks in the city because crack you it wouldn't be nothing for you to see somebody who was doing well um get caught up with crack, right? I
Right.
mean, school teachers, businessmen, or whatever,
Yeah.
and see, because crack was an interesting is this the process, how the process kind of happened. You know, if you were bougie, you were already might be doing cocaine, but cocaine was so expensive, only certain people could do cocaine,
Right.
Right.
right? On top of that, a lot of folks are smoking marijuana. Even CD concerts are smoking
Yeah.
marijuana.
Yeah.
And so how it creeped up, at least how it creeped up on me is, I come from a family that sold marijuana, on the side. I had one brother, he never really had a full job. All he did, he was the marijuana dude in the neighborhood. We know we always
Right.
had the one dude who had all the best smoke. Well, when they had when Reagan came along with his war on drugs, if you pay attention to what was going on there at that time, most marijuana was coming from out of the country,
Right.
right? And if you watch the newscast, they was the war on drugs. They stopped bales and bales and bales of marijuana. Well, what we find is at the same time, while they was focusing on this bales and bales of marijuana, cocaine was being brought in to pay for that
Right.
war,
Right.
right? So if you are a smoke dealer, you ain't getting no job, right?
Right.
So marijuana went up in price, right? Your bags got smaller, and
Mhm.
so what the marijuana dealer did, he said, "Look, I know the bag is small. I got to, it's costing me more, but you take this rock with you and sprinkle it in your marijuana, you'll be fine."
Yeah.
And now we got folks smoking Mac and balls, right? And then next thing is now they just want to rock,
Right.
Right.
and that's and I know that's how the business worked to my brother. My brother, yeah, he would do cocaine every now and then, sniffs of cocaine, but he would because the rock was almost cheaper than the marijuana because it was so much. So you take this rock with that smaller bag, sprinkles in there, and you'll get the high of your life. And the next thing you know, folks ain't trying to get the marijuana; they want the rock. And then when we talk about the effect on the women, and there was a documentary recently, I think really put it the best way. Yeah, women were out here, but women couldn't do the kind of hustling that men could do, like hit
Right.
somebody over the head and that kind of stuff. So they got caught up. And the dude who was telling the story in the documentary, he couldn't even look in the camera because he could think about how he would mistreat
Yeah.
women during the crack era. So now we got babies fending for themselves. We got the babies, both male and female, being sexually assaulted during that era because nobody's watching out for the children. and that kind of stuff. And then the unforgiving system came in and took the children as a punishment to the women instead of giving them treatment. And so now you got this overloaded child protection system and foster care, and make it even worse sometimes. Even in our own community, we had folks who took foster care kids. The black lady, I remember there was a black lady in our community wore a mink coat in the summertime. Let everybody know she had a mink coat. Had a big old house, the house full of kids. Matter of fact, the county would call her directly when they didn't have no kids, the no place for the kids, and she would take them no matter how many kids. And they knew she had too many kids in there because they didn't care, right? And so you end up with this. Even if you didn't get affected directly, you got affected indirectly. And then you
Right.
got Aunt Martha live up in Minnesota, and you live in Chicago. Pookie done got in trouble in Chicago. Now now the
Send them
gang
up.
members looking for Pookie, and you send Pookie to Minnesota to live with Aunt Martha and them. That one that couple that when they show up for the family reunion, they come up in a new Mercedes every year because they just doing it like that, right? And they take them because that's family, because that's what we do. Pookie comes up. Pookie now selling drugs out the back door of the house. Then they change the rules that if they bust a house, they take your house
Hmm.
because you kept putting in punishment, no treatment,
No,
and so everybody got again, even the middle class got affected
Right.
by crack cocaine. We are that was the last blow. We've been taking blows. Black people have been taking blows forever,
Right.
and at the same time trying to do the right thing, hoping that the system was going to accept them. Then at the same time, instead of really dealing with what this does to us psychological and physically, we want to hope and pray.
Right.
And so now you got a situation where you're third generation in of young people who raise kids in trauma.
Right.
And so trauma is so normal that
yeah,
how do I differentiate that? And you see it when you work with the clients.
yeah,
Ask them simple questions about manhood. Ask them simple questions about what it mean to be happy. You know, so so it's just it's just everything coming together at once
Right.
that was already there, and us refusing to come up with to deal with the full truth.
Right.
We can all talk about systems, but the full truth. And you talk about young people not being connected to religion like like in a generation that's already had been started
Yeah.
before crack. But the
Hmm.
thing is, again, when young people, you say one thing to young people and they see the
And
lie,
you don't live it. Yeah.
right,
yeah.
right, and so you're not, after a while, when you just faking and shaking and gaslighting people, you end up faking and shaking yourself and don't even realize until it's too
Right.
late. Ain't nobody listening to you.
Right.
That's a good point because see, like, one of the things the participants that I deal with, they talk about, like they they like the fact that I talk my reality, what my past was. Not, they know that, this isn't no textbook stuff. This is, what I'm saying, me telling you how I got to this point and this is how I'm trying to get out. And like you were talking about something and put in mind like about the PTSD basically that we all suffer from in our community. I mean, because I mean, people don't want to see it like that. Some people don't, some people do. From the time, I can remember hearing gunshots over and over in the neighborhood, seeing the things that went on. Not, and this is not even talking about what's happening in the home. You know what I'm saying? The stuff like, what goes on here, don't, stays here, but just out in the community, seeing the violence and everything. And we became so desensitized to it that, it's become like a norm, like you said. So watching somebody getting their head cracked was like, okay, that's just everyday living. And now I don't have a chance to process that. And now I'm having kids and they seeing the same thing, and it's a crazy cycle. But what I'm getting at is like this lady that she just got in touch with me. She wants to partner with us where she wants to, your curriculum is going to come right into play for these young black men that she wants to work with, dealing straight with that trauma, the PTSD and everything like that. So, how is PTSD really affecting our neighborhoods is one of the things that we have to look at. And not only how is it affecting, but what is the answer to it?
Well, I don't. I think when we talk about us, the PS. When you talk about that, you really need to call it the more of the post traumatic slave syndrome,
Slave disorder. Yeah.
because that research was based on the understanding of post traumatic stress, right? That was the foundation that I think Joy started with and just built upon it with our experience, our
Right.
full experience here in America, right? And not that that don't apply, but it's not it's multiple generations and us rolling with the punches and not really slowing down the hill. And then, as one young lady says, Mr. Simmons, how does your community heal when it's still under attack? And the thing is we don't have no other choice but to deal with both. But
Right.
we try to only deal with one at a time, and we don't have that luxury. We really don't have that luxury to do that. And how do I gain enough skills in myself in terms of dealing with my trauma so I can be more aware what part of this is mine, the thing I have the most control over, right? If and really look at self in an honest way, which can be very difficult because of some of the stuff we might have done, some of the stuff we might have said, and all these other kind of things, is really making peace with ourselves so we can make peace with our trauma and so we can go forward. But you're dealing with this younger generation that they refuse to feel because feeling ain't good. You
Right.
feel refuse to feel. If I'm not medicating it, I'm medicating it by harming somebody else. When I say that folks harm other people for fun, I mean that.
Right.
When they get together after they done carjack, think about some of these kids. They carjacking folks, and all they doing, as one person said, they carjack a person just to drive across town and then talk about how scared the person was they carjacked.
Yeah. They're not taking the cars to chop shops and stuff. They
Right,
just doing it.
right.
Hmm.
You know, and everybody trying to figure out why. So we start talking about catalytic converters, and now that's the story here in Minnesota, and there's all the kind of stuff. But if
These kids ain't got the
they're
skills to
the
take no converter off a car.
right. We're talking about modern day joyriding at the
Yeah.
expense of other people. Because
Right.
if I'm to the point where I'm just numb to other people's stuff, right, and I feel people's stuff is numb to me, it ends up being entertainment. It's like
Right.
about doing gang bangs on girls and stuff and filming that stuff. That stuff is entertainment.
Right.
And so even their sexuality is built in trauma. It's like
Right.
it's like it's not making love, it's knocking you off,
Right.
right? So even that piece in the past, it was like that was one space that I could be free to be myself. It ain't even that. You get women who talk about, I can tell when men, go to strip clubs and everything else because they want you to play tricks. Ain't nobody got no time for all that noise. So it's how do I entertain myself to the point, because my emotions are so worn out because I started a deficit as a kid, so worn out that just to feel human, I got to do something radical just to feel
Extreme.
human.
Yeah.
So when we look at mental health issues, when we used to have suicidal folks on the lock unit, and we would get a cutter, which is the worst kind of person you want to deal with in a lock unit, right? Instead of cutting myself with a knife or a needle, I cut myself by distract myself by what I do to other folks, and not taking and not treating them in a way humanely, because I sometimes don't feel like I've been treated humanely, and I don't know who to trust, And then when some adults approach me, all they want to do is talk to me about pulling up my pants, which has nothing to do with them helping me or nothing,
Right.
you know. Won't and again, unfortunately, for a long time, especially dealing with young men, when we ran programs, a lot of the programs are ran about folks who were drug dealers and ran the streets, right? And so the young people said, "Man, I could listen to that brother, because he been where I'm at." Half them brothers didn't even do their full trauma work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're getting paid for being, the former victim and that kind of stuff, but they haven't done their full work. They're still talking about women disrespectfully. They're
Mm-hmm.
still, they're still having babies all willy nilly, right? It's one thing to have babies out of wedlock, but it's just having babies without no thought and no connection is
Right.
even worse, right? It's bad enough, but when you do that without no regard, and when you just uh, uh, in the survival mode and using sex for uh, for stress management, you're not thinking responsibly about your sexuality, and they want to blame everybody else when systems and folks come down on you about that responsibility. We have
Right.
to watch what we say to young folks, because I remember there was a time when young folks would say to me, I remember this young dude in prison. He says, they brought you in to talk to us. I said, yeah. He said, have you ever done any time? I said, no, but I've done some stuff I probably should have. Have you ever went homeless? No, I didn't. No, I made sure I never went homeless. Have you ever went out without a meal? Not that I didn't want to. He said to me, what do you got to say to me? So so now you're going now if I my ego gets caught up in that kind of stuff, then he done chased me about the room.
Right.
I looked at him and said, well, since that's the qualification for you to listen to me, maybe you should just go on back to your cell. And he like, whoa, brother, why I gotta be like that? I said, because I ain't got time to listen to that. Now, if you don't want to sit back and listen to what I got to say and think about and process to see if maybe I might be making sense, sometimes you got to listen to somebody who ain't lived that life so you can figure out how not to live that life. And so we try to generate certain kind of methods out of our brokenness and try to make it okay. We've been trying to make brokenness okay instead of addressing the brokenness.
Right.
And so that doesn't diminish your experience, right? But we really gotta elevate how because we always trying to generate some kind of artificial self-esteem for our folks when we just gotta you don't have to build artificial self-esteem when you get real about what's going on with you and get real about you don't know what to do next time and get real about baby I'm scared too out here,
Right.
right? And so in the group I do, yeah, I got my little curriculum stuff, but it's really about what do you think about this, and
Right.
and have them say that out loud to find out, by themselves that something's wrong with what they're saying in their thought process, because that's the best way to teach, because it sticks longer. The truth. The one of the reasons people don't want to deal with healing, we can get all kind of technical, is healing means to deal with the full truth, not just the parts you comfortable with,
Right.
not just the parts that make you a victim. Because we have been put in positions, especially us who do the work, that you tell your stuff tell your story as a victim, you can get paid by white folks
Right.
for telling your story as a victim. So I'm gonna be quiet because I'm
That is very
tired.
true.
I'm
Okay,
tired.
let me add just one point on to
I
what
had a
Sam
bunch
was
of points.
saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
You the
you
smart.
took
You
us
the
took
smart.
us.
You the smart one in the room.
I just want to highlight something you said because you went to how we utilize how trauma impacts our sexuality and our sexual behavior, but right before that, you were talking about because the question was on PTSD. You were talking about the carjackings and how it's just done for a thrill. And two things I want to point out with that, because one thing that has recently happened, I think last week, a week ago, was the carjacking that took place in DC, where it was two girls, which is very rare. Apparently not in DC. That's how they're getting down. But two young girls, 13 and 14 years old, carjacked an Uber driver. He's trying to get them out the car, and they take off with them hanging in the car. The car flips over, wrecks. He ends up dying. If you go back and watch this video, you will see the desensitized part of humanity. This man's laying there lifeless. The two girls, one girl's more concerned with getting her phone out of the car. The car is flipped over, by the way. She's like, get my phone, get my phone. The other girl's kind of stumbling out. She's a little disoriented. And they're trying to get away. They didn't get away because one was disoriented. The other one's trying to get her phone. They could have easily got away from that. Everybody around them is just standing there. This man's body's laying there. Everybody's just standing there, not knowing what to do. Some of it could be shock, but I think we've just seen so much violence through video games, movies, television shows, etc., real life, that nobody did anything. So I want to highlight that part of what we're seeing, but I also want to talk about how we've gotten to this place of this violence and this expectation of doing it for entertainment. Now, if you think about what has happened in the 90s, in the 2000s, and even today, as far as the more popular entertainment things, it's what? Reality TV.
Right.
And then what social media has created is you can become the new reality star. So yeah, I'm going to steal a car and I'm going to film it. And we're going to go live while I'm still in the car. Yeah, we about to run a train on this girl and I'm going to put it on camera because I want to be a star. And I'm going to talk to the audience while we're performing the act. So deep down from a psychological standpoint, the trauma response has been, I'm going to get clout from this behavior and I'm going to get relief. Even knowing it's destructive, but it's enticing. Back to what Sam was talking about, having those exciting emotional stimulation. It's something I call being an emotional extremist. So we don't do things for normal pleasure anymore. We got to turn it up a few notches just so we can feel something different and get the attention and clout from it at the same time. So we have to be very mindful of that's where a lot of these young people are. Yeah, we're going to go rob this store and I'm going to film myself doing it. No mask on. Don't care. Throwing up my hood, representing, shouting out people in the live, because that's where we're at. Because when you've lost your value and your self-esteem as a person, you seek that externally. It's not intrinsic anymore. So the most wild thing that I can do, I'm going to do, and I'm going to get clout off of it. If I go to jail or not, it doesn't matter because now my life has more value than it did before I did this act.
And I have a story.
Right.
And I might be dead, but you'll still have the story.
Right.
Okay? I might be dead, you'll still have the story. So it's fatalism, right? I don't plan to live that long, no way.
Right.
Okay? Not only,
Bingo.
And that's also goes about how having kids. I remember this guy, 35 years old, we were talking about being a father. And they asked me, did I have any kids? And I said, yeah, I got one. I got one biological child. And one of the dudes almost started crying. He said, you only got one child? And I said, yeah. He said, what about your legacy? I said, what? What about your legacy? I said, what do you mean? See, because you got to watch what people say to you. You got to watch when they use words. Because they use the words, don't just accept they know what they're talking about.
Right.
Or don't accept that their definition of the word is the same. And I said, what do you mean by my legacy? He said, you only got one child. And this dude got like 5 kids, three mothers of his children, right? And he, and basically what he was saying is you leave children, so you leave something that looked like you so folks wouldn't forget about you.
Yeah.
That's fatalism.
Right. And it's funny because it ties. I'm tying this back into when you were talking about the people who, if you haven't done the work and now you're trying to help people where you help hurting them more than you help them. And it's funny because like some of the things that we're touching on were some of the things that that I had to work on because I had this distorted belief system coming out the streets. And I think I think the God of my understanding for the 12-step program that I'm in, because if I hadn't, I would have been one of those ones, Sam, who was still thinking that what I'm saying, I can help the community, but I'm still running around throwing my thing everywhere, just causing more problems in the community than the person that I've grown into doing the inside work. And it's funny that you said that, man, because like,
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Because the thing is I remember the first more dramatic time, and I'm not saying that I didn't do some of that, because I mean I was a CD concert and still getting high, so I can't say much,
Yeah,
right? Um, um, and but again, say that you got a brother who's working with brothers on domestic violence. Uh, he got a domestic violence case and that kind of stuff, and they send him to the brother. And I'm over listening to the brother, and the brother basically saying, "Brother, you know how women are, and your problem is you just got caught in that kind of stuff." And it's like, whoa, whoa. So you just basically told that dude it was this is a woman's state. You know how women are, right? And your problem is you got caught, and they paying you to do this group with these brothers. And I'm like, damn. And because the problem is the people who sent them brothers to him, they didn't care.
we don't care, right?
Why would they? Why should somebody care more than you? Because they knew they couldn't do nothing with them brothers. All the brothers that are sent to me are classified as dangerous, right? And most of them are just foolish. Now there's a few of them in there who are truly dangerous, but the majority of them are just foolish, right? They don't know what they don't know. They go from one moment of life to another moment of life. The best thing they do is struggle to keep a job, because they try to do right, but it's hard to do right when you don't have a full understanding of what that means,
Right,
right? So I keep a little job, trying to do that, trying to be decent to my kids, trying to get along with their mother, try to make a family out of no family. And it seems like every time I turn, I'm hitting the wall, right? And so, yeah, I'm hitting the wall. But again, that fatalism, and you're talking about that over. I forget the term you use, Brandon, about the need to overdo it. But the thing is, if this is the middle, and emotionally I'm already down here, I have to work twice as hard just to get closer to what we call normal.
yeah,
So, and so again, I've seen people just do stuff, and you see it in the videos and everything. Their entertainment is doing stuff to other folks, not caring, because they don't even believe anybody cared about them. And the thing is we got the Chauvin trial going on, right? I got cats in my group is like, when you bring up Chauvin, they say, "Why are you bringing it up?" Man, I don't care nothing about that. They're gonna do what they're gonna do.
right. And that's and that's part of like like how not just social media, but how accessible media is now. It's like the double-edged sword. And, I mean, even with the smartphones, and we can watch anything, where we have all the information we can use if we want to get better. But we also have stuff at real time now for, like, to help keep me sick. I mean, where people just, it's easier for me to have that I don't care attitude, because I'm seeing stuff like what me and Brandon were talking about. It's the Congress, the state representative knocking on the door, and she goes to jail for peacefully knocking on the door. But then I see these other people run up in the Capitol building, and now all of a sudden the FBI needs my help and everybody else's help to find these people. And that gives you the attitude like, why should I even care, man? They don't care about us, And I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but see, you're talking about systems, and it's deeper than systems,
It's deeper than system.
and it's been deeper than systems all for a long time, right? And we can talk about social media, but if the foundation ain't there, the social media can't take over.
Hmm. True that. True that.
Because it's easy to uh, uh, you know talk about external factors, but them internal factors, if we really want to do better, is where our hope is. How do we improve the internal factors?
Yeah. And that's the thing, trying to teach people how to do the internal work. Because like that curriculum that I use, and plus what I've learned through the, like I say, my journey through the 12 steps. You know what I'm saying? It's funny how I talk about some things, and these people think I'm a genius. And I'm like, no, man, this is all something that somebody else gave me. That I've learned how to use in my own life. But I'm watching them how they work, how they, some of them are waking up, and I mean, and I see that. That's the one thing, because like I say, everything that's been going on with my nonprofit has really been funded by me mostly. I've gotten a few donations here and there, but I do it because I like to see the lights go on and people, like somebody took time to watch the lights go on in me and put it in there. So, I mean, and I think that's the healing element that, we need to keep doing is just keep on. I got to applaud you too for the work that you do. The Healing Brothers podcast every Sunday. If I'm not really doing nothing, caught up with the family and nothing, I'm there. And then I'll go back and watch the episodes that I missed. So, I mean, the work that you two are really doing is important to me. And I'm hoping that other people feel that way. Speaking of the Healing Brothers podcast, what do you guys have coming up this weekend on there?
Well, it's always a crapshoot. We don't plan this far ahead when it comes to
Well,
scheduling the topics.
this
But
Sunday
we
is
have, yeah. Go ahead.
this
Go
Sunday
ahead,
is
Sam.
Easter.
Yeah,
We're gonna take a break
we're gonna
on
take a
Sunday.
holiday. Yeah,
We're gonna take a break. We'll be back in 2 weeks. But our show this past Sunday was on manhood.
Yeah.
right.
And we figured it out probably the night before or 20 minutes before. I have a list of I actually have a list of topics, and then every now and then I'll add another one.
Yeah.
Part of it is all depend on what I feel like talking about, right?
Right.
Because some things I just don't feel in the mood to talk about, or how radical I might want to be, because there's certain topics that will trip a chord on us in a minute, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm in one of those ornery moods, then we'll do one of those kind of topics. But it's probably more tied to my mood than anything else.
Yeah, and I think another part of the secret sauce of the podcast is Sam and myself. We've been having these types of conversations for almost 10 years now. Damn, it is. It's been at least 10 years. So these are not conversations that are new for us. So literally, we could pick a topic in 5 minutes and go on for 3 hours if we need to, because we've discussed a lot of these things already just through the work that we've had. And I think that that's something that's important. One for for the podcast is we get to cross generations and have different perspectives on it, but it's all from the lens of trauma and having an understanding on how to move the community forward. And I don't think that you get to see that happen very often in any podcast or social media channels. So I think that's kind of it, and honestly, that's how the podcast came together. I said at some point, Sam, we gotta stop talking on the phone, man. Start putting this stuff out. I'm gonna start recording you in secret and just putting it on a RRS feed and just having our own podcast, because we would have these rich dialogues all the time, but it would just be closed off to us or a few people if we were in, together or whatnot. But yeah, that's kind of it. And at the end of the day, no matter what the topic is, we're always talking about what the problems are, the trauma, and we're always looking at strategies to moving forward.
And ironically, I think the big piece about the fact that we continually do it from a lens of trauma, that's kind of unique, it because that doing a thing around Black people around the lens of trauma is very difficult. We have a hard time doing that. I mean, a lot of times, and for years, when I come in and I always have a trauma lens, which sometimes ain't fun when you're with other people who just want, don't want to deal with that word or deal with trauma. If you listen sometime, we'll talk about trauma, but we'll go straight to resiliency, right? And how resilient we are. You'll find in our podcast we don't use that term much. We believe it exists, but we don't use that term much because it's so often misused to shut people down, to really stay in the ugly. See, I believe that the truth is in the dark,
Hmm.
especially in because so much is done in the dark, right? And so the truth is really in the dark. And if you are scared to go in the dark, yeah, you'll never find the light, right? Because once you find out that you can be in the dark and deal with the dark and the ugly and the painful, and then you can leave it in the dark when you come out the light. But we like to change the topic a lot. We like to change the topic, and you also will not hear us talk a great deal. Not that we won't, about white folks in the system,
Right.
right? That conversation too damn easy, um, and that's what that part is what's scary to the white individuals I deal with. I because I had a person tell me, "Well, you don't really talk about white people." I said, "Because you ain't that important in this conversation." And you thought I hit that woman with a sledgehammer. How can I not be? Because I mean, even in the ugly, they would when it comes to us, it's like when I work with an organization and I say, well, let's break the group up, the Black staff, in one room, and if any of the other staff of color, got to be politically correct. If they want to come in there, fine. And then the white staff go in another room. The white staff too worried about what we talking about. In the other room, the Black folks don't give a damn about what them white folks are talking about in the other room because they don't get a chance to get together and say how they really feel without somebody coming back and making them pay, especially in the organization. So they like to be in the middle of the mix all the time because that's that privilege. I can be wherever I want, right? It's like when you would see them old 70s movies. The white man walk up in a Black club like he owned the damn thing, right? Like because he can do that. Black man walk up in a white club, he being threatened and mean mugged and everything else, right?
Stops.
You know, but yeah, so that gives them too much power. That's why I don't talk a lot about use the term white supremacy. Why I'm gonna use a term that we know exists is what it's this is all built on that, right? But it's also built on the back of our trauma, and that part is the piece that we need to take that weight off so that we can show each other love in the community, and in that love is where the power is at, right? But it's hard to do that when you can't fully come to understand on how to love yourself in spite of that, and in your family allowing you to love yourself without thinking that you got to take them along, because you got to do your work. You can't always take your family along, at least initially. And unfortunately, our codependency as a Black people won't allow us to do that type of healing, because
Yeah.
we can talk about chemical dependency, all kind of dependencies, but the most damaging dependency in the Black community is codependency. Our inability to disconnect, even for our own health,
Right.
and the community won't let us
Yeah.
do that.
You get
You start,
shamed.
you get shamed and everything. Why you leaving us? It's like that's why I don't even chastise people, Black folks who move out in the suburbs. Everybody wants to be happy, and if I'm gonna be happy in the suburbs, fine. Back in the old days, folks would shame a person who moved in the suburbs. You don't care nothing about the community. Now I might have moved out of the suburbs, take my family to the suburbs where I think they'll be safe, right? And I might come back in the city and help you. But if you shame me, guess what I'm not gonna do?
I'm not gonna come back.
I'm not gonna come back. So you
Yeah.
shame. I might have thought about coming back, but you done shame me so bad. I'm not coming back there.
Yeah.
And so we're so busy. If I'm suffering, they talk about crabs in the barrel. It's really about suffering. If I'm suffering, we going we when we talk about a collective community, we know how to do some collective suffering.
Yeah.
But sometimes before we can do collective healing, we might have to start individually, and
Individual.
Yeah.
that's a tough one. And
United
that's where that
independent.
codependency come in.
Yeah. It's a united independent effort.
Right.
I agree.
I say all the time, I got 2 advanced degrees. I'm already a professor. I could easily just tuck away and teach and not do anything in the community anymore very easily. Make good money and all that. But so we have to, but I don't, because I know that what I can offer to the community is valuable to helping us move forward. But if we continue to have that mentality that if somebody moves to the suburbs, that they're uppity or they're trying to do their healing journey, they're getting themselves together, that they
Right.
ain't got time for you no more, we're never going to get better because we're always pulling each other back to an unhealthy place.
And I have learned to not take that stuff personally.
Yeah.
Right.
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 And this is gonna sound cold maybe, but when I'm dealing with black folks, I expect to be mistreated until I'm not. And that's a sad commentary, but it's very true. And once I learned that, I don't take it personal. Now, if the person don't, because the thing is we kind of do that to each other. It's just that we just kind of come at each other, and it's almost so natural that we don't even realize we're doing it,
Right.
right? And unfortunately, I've been more right than wrong, right? And so when a person come at me all sideways, I don't take it personally, right? And somewhere along the line, they catch up, and that's that whole thing. Another version of leadership,
And,
right? I can't wait for you to catch up for me to lead,
and you
right?
that's real important that you got that we're talking about that, because see, like, one of the things we were hitting on either last week or the week before was about when we're making that change, how some people are going to perceive us, and we need to make sure that we keep on our focus and keep doing what we're doing, because if not, I'll go ahead and revert back to, what I'm saying, because like you were saying, being shamed, I would just give up my mission if I'm
Right.
not doing the right work on me. You know what I'm saying? I'll give up my mission because I'm being shamed. And I was talking to my participants about that. And I was sharing from my personal experience of how when I was coming out the streets and doing all of that, people, like you said, Sam, if you're not getting comfortable with being okay with that stuff, man, that stuff it can be real traumatizing. And that's one of the things that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. And it was funny, a guy that I work with told me, he said, it was funny just prior to this, when we were on the phone, he said, one of these cats that we were talking to said, at first I didn't like him, but no matter what it is, I gotta respect him for what he's doing. And like I shared with him, I said, well, the same respect that guy has for me, I had to learn how to get it for myself first. Because if I didn't, I would have gave this mission up a long time ago.
And so what I call it is reflective trauma. And it helped me understand my experience in the projects, right? Um, when that person looks at me, they feel bad about themselves.
Hmm.
So you're doing well. Instead of you being happy for me, all you can feel is the reflection that it makes you, because they're not where you're at, they feel shame. And then they take it out on you. Because when I was in the projects, we were a middle class family in the projects. My daddy just was cheap. That's the only reason we didn't move, right? And I could never understand why the other black kids who didn't have a pot to piss in, eating grease sandwiches, that I would give them, I would sneak food out the house and give it to them and everything and that kind of stuff. And you know, could never understand why they would beat the snot out of me and rather beat the snot out of me and take it than let me give it to them.
Hmm.
To the point that when I grew up, and I say this more often, and it's freed me. When I grew up in the projects under that experience, I did not like black people because the black folks was so damn mean to me. Now think about that,
Right. So hey,
okay? And so the thing is now when I thought about that is that when they would look at what we had, instead of them being happy for us, they felt bad for themselves,
hmm,
right? And that's kind of I think what shows up, right? That jealousy or that sadness for their own self, right? And sometimes we rub it in, you know, and I try not to rub it in, but I'm not gonna minimize either. You know, it's like you think you all that because you got a brand new car. Yeah, and I paid for it. Now what else you want to know? You want to talk about my car or you want to talk about how I can help you? Now you decide, you go sit over there and decide that on your own, right? But think about how often we hear about stories of young people we get up out of the gang life and and how they've been shot on the bus doing the right thing.
right. That was one of my fears. Yeah, it really was when I was trying to really change my life. I was one of my fears. You know.
Doing the right thing, right? Because it's God, you think you better than us. Think about that. Think about what that is, right? And it's not just in amongst our young people, and it's not just with the underprivileged in our community. It's throughout our community. It could be in the church amongst deacons. It could be in the community, so-called community leadership. You know, the community leadership don't. A lot of community leadership don't have nothing to do with me. You know, and the reason they don't have nothing to do with me, like one dude said, it ain't that we don't like you. We don't know what to do with you, because I don't respond to their bull crap. Man, I ain't got that. You know, man, I ain't got no time for you. I don't do the stuff you doing. You know, you telling me if I'm really, and I'm not even, and I don't even want to have the title so-called community leader. You know, other folks want to bring that, give me that title and that kind of stuff. I don't want that title because there's too much to go along with that title,
Hmm.
and I don't even try to live up to that, right? But some folks need that to cover up their trauma. You'll be surprised at how many of these folks out here behind the scenes are a bunch of traumatized individuals who just like being on TV. And you know, I ain't gonna even call some of them out because I know some of them personally, right? And so you know, you can't mess with somebody you can't mess with. You can't mess with somebody that you can't sour their self-esteem, right? You know, you can't mess with somebody who's not easily triggered. That ain't no fun
Right.
because if I'm easily triggered, you trigger me, you could be dead wrong. Everybody in the room could know you was dead wrong. You trigger me, right? I whooped the shit out of you. What do they remember?
They remember that whooping. No,
They
they
will remember I whooped the shit out of you, and what they will say is he was the healing brother. Look at him with
right,
this
right,
and that and this, right? So I not only do you disrespect me, I end up disrespecting myself in my response to you. So I lose
both times. Yep,
both times.
both times.
And then people come up to you and they know you did me wrong, but they're coming, man, that brother shouldn't have done you like that. You know, and then now I'm hot as for real, right? And I used to get caught up in that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, I got brothers. I had a brother who I used to work with that was up in my house, and I don't just let anybody up in my house unless it's Christmas Eve. I have an open house. I can let anybody up, but I just don't let anybody in my house, in my space, in my sanctuary. You know, I had a brother I worked with. I lit up in my house, drank my booze, smoked my cigars, all this other kind of stuff. Cost me 20 grand. Now we don't have that same kind of relationship, but every time I see him, I buy him a drink. and the look on his face like, you do know what I did to you, right? Yeah, I know, and you know I know.
Right.
But have a drink. How's your family? And last time I was around him, he got so mad he slammed the drink down and walked off. Fuck you. I probably shouldn't have said that on your little
No,
podcast.
you all right, man. They know that people are surprised that I do these interviews without cussing as much as I do, though. So
Oh, hey, you ain't alone.
yeah,
People say,
people,
how do you do that and don't curse, man? I said, I'm a professional.
yeah, yeah. So before we get out of here, though, gentlemen, I like to thank you. So, what's going on with the seminar this year? Is registrations open right now, Sam? Or
The registration not open yet. Um, had intended to have it open this week. I got a meeting this week, so we'll probably. But I do have notices up on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. So once we open it up, it'll be on and popping. After that. But it's June 24th and 25th. Um, you can go to brothershealing.com and get all the information. But yeah, you can even go to Samuel Simmons Consulting.com. All of them will take you there. So
okay. I'll make sure I'm getting my registration again this year, so I ain't got to call and bug you on the phone like last year. Man.
oh no, we're hoping that it'll be a lot smoother this year.
Yeah.
That was our first year on that virtual reality kind of stuff. The first early part of the first day was a mess. It went better, and then we did make it so people could go back in and
Yeah.
review it and that kind of stuff because we had recorded everything. So
All right, and Brandon, what do you have coming up before we get out of here?
I'll be relaunching my show. It's not gonna be called Ash to Jegna. I'm still figuring out the title, but I'll be relaunching a live show. But right now, on my YouTube platform, it's just Brandon Jones, and then if you just search Brandon Jones Jegna to find it. I also have the Jegna and the Thinker podcast with brother Aaron Simmons, no relation to Sam Simmons. And then I have another podcast called The Listening Eye with myself and another Aaron Dubose, which is given more of a female perspective and a millennial perspective on the things that are happening. So building that platform and continue to just do constructive work as best as I can.
see there, see how he is.
What? I got three podcasts going, 4 pretty soon. One with Sam, one with the person named Aaron, another one with Aaron. We cranking out the content, man.
But the Healing Brothers podcast will be off this week, so I'm going to need to find something to fill my void. So player.
Go watch the old episodes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Watch old episodes. Sit down and have your Easter dinner or something.
Believe me, I'll find something to fill my void, something positive to fill my void. More of that negative stuff. But look, I really appreciate it, Sam. You coming out this late, Brandon. I always appreciate everything you do for me and everything. And I'm looking forward, with all the adventures y'all got coming up and everything. And try to put that link on the Black Community Blackboard when the links come open so that people can register if anybody wants to. That's a really good seminar. I got a lot out of it last year. With that being said, any one of you guys want to say in closing before we get out of here?
Nope, I'm good.
My man.
Be good to yourself.
Be good to yourself. I appreciate you two brothers, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yep.